This isn't my poem, okay? This is on Facebook, Steve Delano Garcia. I am a weather system wearing a smile, a force of warmth and gravity that refuses to be neatly labeled. People read my light and assume they know its source, but the truth lives in the thunder beneath the laughter, the soft ache tucked beneath the bravado, the stubborn bloom of resilience pressed between the ribs. I confuse people not because I flow aimlessly, but because I pull in multiple directions at once, bright and shadowed, fierce and fragile, loud and whisper soft, until they realize they have been listening to a chorus, not a single voice. I am the sunlit edge of a storm, the radiant glare that blinds you to the ripples of pain just beneath the surface, the warmth that invites you close while the room trembles with unspoken questions about who I am when the lights go down. My personality wears a confident crown, a bright magnetic surface that can light a room and call it to attention. Yet beneath that crown, my heart keeps a private chamber where the weather shifts on its own schedule. The happiness I radiate is genuine, a sunbeam I offer freely, but its glow does not ease the quiet, uninvited sadness that threads through my days. I'm not pretending when I laugh. I am choosing to show up, to breathe, to participate in life, even when the music between notes sounds uneasy. The complexity of my cheer is not a contradiction to my sorrow, but a braid of courage that keeps me standing when the world asks me to shrink. I carry a sad soul with a patient, enduring gravity. It is not the master of me, but a companion who walks beside me, sometimes leaning into the light, sometimes sinking into the shadows. The sad soul does not demand control. It requests gentleness, a listening ear, and space to exist without apology. It hums during ordinary moments, the clink of a cup, the turn of a page, the pause before a decision, reminding me that sorrow, when treated with tenderness, becomes a teacher rather than a taskmaster. In its presence, I learn to honor the limits of my own heart without diminishing the brightness I offer to others. There is quite a bravery in admitting that joy and ache can share the same breath and still keep their own distinct rhythm. Boldness and shyness cohabit. My life, like two halves of a single heartbeat, I stride forward with conviction, claiming my space, speaking truth with a voice that knows its own worth, even as the tremor in my throat betrays the vulnerability I fear exposing. Boldness is not a fearless roaring. It is a deliberate choice to show up, to risk being seen, to stand in a room and refuse to shrink for the comfort of others. And yet, when the walls close in, I retreat into a soft private corner where the fears that haunt my mind melt into the quiet music of a late-night room. The tension between daring and delicacy is not a flaw to eradicate, but a compass that orients me towards authenticity, even when it feels impossible to harmonize. I love with a field-sweeping intensity, a gravity that pulls me towards the heart of another with almost ferocious devotion. I give fiercely, unguarded, and with a tenderness that lights entire weeks of ordinary days. When love takes root, I become a maker of safe havens, a person who will move mountains to protect the tenderness entrusted to me. Yet detachment shows up when the noise of expectations becomes overwhelming, or when the fear of losing myself to another's orbit grows loud enough to drown out my inner music. Detachment is not disloyalty. It is a salve I apply to keep from dissolving my boundaries in the heat of immersion. It is a sign that love's deepest work, to be known and still return to myself, must be done with intention, patience, and a willingness to endure the tenderness of being misunderstood. I am in a perpetual state of healing while still carrying the old wounds, and I meet this paradox with a sacred resolve. Healing is not erasure. It is translation, translating pain into wisdom, into kinder self-talk, into clearer boundaries, into actions that honor my needs. I cradle the parts that ache with the care I would offer a child who has been left to wander for too long. I do not romanticize the hurt, but I do honor its role as a tutor, a stern and generous teacher who insists I demand more from the world than I ever thought possible. In healing, I discover that mercy begins within the body, that self-respect is a decision I make again and again, and that every small act of courage becomes a stepping stone towards a larger, more luminous truth about who I am becoming. I'm a fierce advocate for growth, not a patient list of achievements, but a living, breathing practice of becoming. Growth is a jagged path, curves that twist back, hills that threaten to topple me, sudden drops that teach me to land with grace. I choose the demanding work of turning wounds into wisdom, of rewriting old scripts that I said must shrink that said I must shrink to be safe, of calibrating my voice so that it resonates with both authority and tenderness. Yet I catch myself in cycles of self-sabotage, those sly whispers and small rituals that pull me toward familiar, comforting, self-defeating grooves. I recognize them not as proof of weakness, but as proof that I am real, that I am risking change, that I am unwilling to settle for anything less than a life that honors my truth. Every time I stumble, I rise with more resolve, more clarity, more compassion for the me that is learning to navigate herself. I am an architecture of contradictions, a human sculpture carved with multiplicities. I am not a neat equation to be solved, but a living sculpture to be appreciated in all its angles and edges. I want to be seen for the whole of me, the bright flare, the soft side, the stubborn refusal to be reduced to a single narrative of strength or struggle. I crave a relationship with the world that acknowledges my full spectrum, the parts that roar and the parts that tremble, the parts that scorch with passion and the parts that crave stillness. I want to be witness in the totality of my weather, not isolated to one season or one mood. If my contradictions offend some, let them pass. I will not dilute myself to fit the narrow view of others. Most of all, I long for peace amidst the chaos of who I am. Peace is not the absence of storm, but the assurance that I can hold my own weather with grace. It is the quiet decision to tolerate ambiguity, to rest in the moment between breaths, to choose mercy for myself when the mind fills with judgments I would never offer to a friend. Peace is the discipline to stand tall while my heart shifts in its weight, to listen deeply to the tremor in another's voice and still anchor my own truth. I dream of a harbor where the winds of life can swirl without shattering me, where brightness and sorrow can coexist in a single unbroken breath. When chaos rises, I choose to become the calm at its center, a living flame that refuses to be consumed by fear or bitterness. I am, in the fullness of my being, a beautiful broken woman who refuses to be only one thing. I am a chorus of color, intense, luminous, and stubbornly alive. I am the loud and the soft, the brave and the vulnerable, the generous and the guarded, the radiant and the aching. If you listen deeply, you will hear a vow I am learning to hold to the tenderness of a fully exposed heart and the power of a spine that will not bow to the weather of others' opinions. I am becoming someone who can stand in the middle of the storm and still offer warmth to the wind, who can love without surrendering the self I have fought so hard to protect. I am moving towards a state where I am not defined by the struggle alone, but celebrated for the bravery it takes to keep choosing myself again and again. Final note. A quiet, ferocious truth: I am enough, not in spite of my complexity, but because of it. I am a symphony of imperfections, whose resonance can heal, teach, and awaken others who fear their own storms. I am here, I am healing, I am growing. I am all at once, the loud roar, the tender whisper, the blaze, and the breath, the woman who chooses to endure, to forgive, and to thrive. If my map confuses the hands that try to lead me, I will not apologize for my geography. I will stand. I will breathe, I will rise, and I will remain true to the fierce, unyielding compass inside of my chest, the stubborn, beautiful rhythm of a heart that refuses to be erased by fear. I am here, I am enough, and I am becoming. And then underneath it's a picture. I am a storm wearing a smile of fierce tenderness braided with quiet fear, a blaze of boldness softened with the ache of joy. I rise not in spite of my contradictions, but because of them, selecting the stubborn, luminous shape of my whole self. Each time the world asks me to shrink, my heart loves with the gravity that moves mountains and mends wounds, yet knows the fragility of light. I am both the thunder and the sigh, the fearless voice and the trembling whisper, the bright blaze that lights the room and the gentle ember that keeps vigil in the dark. I am here, fully, unashamedly, and unbreakably becoming.